Hello and welcome to Season 2 of our First Baptist Church on Fifth podcast. Last season, we heard a number of conversations from our church's members who all answered the same 5 questions about their faith and doubt, about community and hope. This season, we're focusing on the 100th anniversary of our church house. We've been nestled right here on 5th Street in Winston-Salem for 100 years. And oh, if these walls could talk. Our conversations this season will tell a bit about our sacred space, its history, what it means to us, how we use the space and are sent from it. But our conversations will also broaden to the experience of sacred space in general, how we find home in sacred spaces, what sacred space means to communities and neighborhoods and cities, what formation happens, and how then we live. Join us this season for the First Baptist Church on Fifth podcast. And thank you for listening. Hello and welcome back to our First Baptist Church on Fifth podcast. In this 100th anniversary of our church house, we have been so touched and moved to hear from our church historian, Paul McCraw, who is talking us through what all these years of our congregation's life have looked and felt like as we have occupied specific spaces. How do we live in a space together? You are tuning in for episode 7, which is our last episode with Paul. He has been such a wonderful conversation partner and a faithful friend to remind us of these important points in our church's history. And so we're glad that you have joined us again today. We'll conclude with one final episode, which I'll tell you more about at the end of this conversation. But from where we left off, Paul, we concluded our last conversation with the story of the call of Randall Lawley, who was known as a young whippersnapper and one of our most formative pastors. And so I wonder, could you just pick it up where we left off and tell us a little bit more about Randall's call here and what his tenure meant to this congregation?
Right. Randall had connections to the North Carolina, having gone to the seminary at Wake Forest. And so he was well known here in the state, although he was in Fort Worth, Texas, as an associate and then an interim pastor at Broadway. He had been invited earlier, did not choose to come because he had not finished his work there at the seminary for his doctorate. And so they looked around for different people and came back to Randall. And he had by that time finished his classwork, but not his dissertation. And so he decided to look into that, and he came. When he came, this structure had just reached its largest size, having had 2 new buildings added in the 50s, in 54 and 59. What they had not done is pay attention to the original building close enough. There was a lot of work to be done, and when Randall came, he saw a potential of redoing the original sanctuary building. The problem seemed to be a lot of leakage from where the dome and the main part of the building was attached. And I think there was around 60 leaking spots they discovered when they started the work. And so in 64, they completed what had been about a 1.5 year renovation of the building. Among the other things, the church building sanctuary building was taken back to what it looked like originally, with the beautiful work on the tops of the columns and in other places in the dome and over the baptistry. And that had been redone to look like it did in the 1925 with the help of one of our members who was very artistic, and many of you will remember Earlene King. She was helped by a good friend of hers, Jean Moberg. They took care of that. Among other things they did was they lightened up the dark mahogany of the original furniture that had been developed by Mr. Huntley, the Huntley Furniture, in 1925. So they didn't make that change. The building at that time still seated about between 1,800 and 2,000, which has been changed some because of the restructuring of the pulpit and the area to make accommodations for wider aisles, but pretty much as it were in the following years up until today. And the whole thing cost $240,000.
Wow.
Some of which had to be borrowed
Right.
at that time.
I'm so curious, Paul, as we look at, if you're listening, we're sitting in that sanctuary space and we're looking around at this beautiful room. I wonder if you could speak to how the church in those years, and the church was under Dr. Lawley's leadership, approached the 100th anniversary of the congregation. So how did it sort of live into this space in those years? What did being a congregation with 3 distinct buildings and using those buildings in distinct ways, how did that inform the life of the church?
I think it certainly informed the attitude that things were changing and it was coming up, because the original building had been repainted in the mid-40s.
Okay.
Solid white, including the columns, all of the ornate work on the entire building. And it looked very shop-worn at that time. And also, they did condescend to do one thing. They had planned to air condition the building at the end of the last buildings being built. And so they postponed that. When I came to be a member of the church, every Sunday in the summer, all the windows on the lower level were flung open, and the partial windows on the second level were open to give air. And it got pretty hot. But they decided to do that. And it was another year or two before that was finished after that. And also they added an organ. They cushioned the pews with the help of the Kelly family, who later redid the lower auditorium into what we call Kelly Auditorium. And the Conrads gave an organ, a Moeller organ, for the congregation. Part of that is still here. It's been added to in later years in the 90s with the help of our minister of music. We got an Aeolian organ installed with that, and it has been changed twice since then. So it has been modernized and kept up. Dr. Lawley brought with him also the idea that the church would go beyond the building as well as minister to the whole person. We had a full-time program here in the church, and Marshall Price became head of the Youth and Recreation Department to meet the needs of every part of your life, including especially the younger people. And we also went beyond the building with the fairly new Patterson Avenue Mission Center, which, while Dr. Lawley was pastor, became crisis control. And we let our minister relating to missions, Ron Rice, everybody in town knew, became the first head of that. We had programs through Baptist Hospital. We had a medical missions conclave with the help of Baptist Hospital for several years in the late 60s and early 70s. So it was a very forward-looking congregation. And Dr. Lawley took the leadership, which had already begun by laity in the late 50s. So we found a minister who was able to pick up with what the lay people in the church had already begun, and became almost 14 years of extremely avant-garde ministry. And I think the fact that the building had been so nicely renovated and brought back to one of the prettiest church buildings at the time it was built. And I think that had a lot to do with the attitude. We actually lost very few members as a result of the drastic change in some of the...
Paul, I've told you this story before, that when I first came to serve as pastor here, I probably every week had someone tell me, "Oh, I used to roller skate in your church's gym," or "I used to come for Friday night fellowships in your church gym." So much of the spirit of that era, from what I understand about the church's life, is in understanding its building as sort of a community hub. I mean, those are the years that, as you said, Marshall Price ran the recreation ministries of the church that were robust. There were a number of programs that he did for people of all ages. That was when Mitzi Moore and with Dr. Lally started our Child Development Center. It was the first racially integrated educational space in our county. We really did understand this building as being a resource for the community, as being a place to feel belonging and to be not just educated, but cared for. And as you said, caring for the whole person.
I was one of those who learned to skate.
Yes, you did.
And with the help of Marshall Price, who I fell upon it one time and could have easily hurt him.
Oh, no.
He had that kind of thing all the time in helping people learn to skate. And the Rices and the Lollies would go down, and we put on music that would help them learn to skate and dance at the same time.
Sure,
so we had dancing. And also, aside, when they opened it, we had a snack bar. So we bragged that we were the only Baptist church that had a bar.
Classic. I love that.
So we did take a whole new attitude toward the life of people from infancy on up to the older adults.
Yeah.
And the older adults were cared for. They bought a new bus, which they painted gold and green and called it the Golden Goose. And we began to go, let seniors go on that. I later, before I was a senior, began to help do the trips for them. And by that time, the Golden Goose had been replaced by some other means of transportation, but they were included too. And one of the sides that I was involved with as a single adult, somebody decided professional singles needed to have a WMU. And they chose a woman who saw no way of doing that. Lola Jean Yoder decided that if we had something like that, it would not be a WMU, it would be co-ed. And it was Dr. Lally came to get with us to name it. Oh, my
goodness.
And he came up with the term based on what's the term for women and men is the coeducational fraternity.
Oh, my gosh.
And sorority.
Right.
So we took care of single adults, professionals as well.
Yeah.
It was a very positive period
in
the life of the church.
Sure.
And we brought people in from everywhere, including your grandfather.
That's right.
Who came and
preached.
A series of services
Yes.
here. And what Baptists called revivals were changed to be special services that sometimes were quite different from the traditional revivals as they began to move into that area.
And that was also the era, please correct me if I'm wrong, when we first began a TV ministry. So not only were we drawing members of the community here to the building and sending our members out into the world, but we were also putting cameras in the room to open up what we did on Sundays, the worship, to reach a wider TV audience. Is
It
that
had
right?
started before Randall on a very low level, but when he came, the way we did it with the Channel 12 was we shared with First Presbyterian.
Okay.
And we had it for 1/4 of the year, and they had it a fourth, and then repeated. And that didn't turn out as well as it should because the same church always had Easter and always had Christmas, and it wasn't as pleasant as it could have been if the rotation had been a little different. But later, in the 80s, we became part of the Southern Baptist program that was out of San Antonio, I believe, or Fort Worth, Texas. And we were nationwide.
Yes. Wow. So let's let that point pivot us past Dr. Lawley's era and into the latter part of the 20th century in the 80s and 90s. Tell us about what was going on in the building around then.
Well, the building itself did not need a lot of work. There were still occasional problems with leakages and always seemed to be there. The building didn't have a major change until 1991, and we had a new pastor then named David Hughes, who's still a member of the congregation. He had come from First Baptist in Elkin, and before he really came on board, he was called by one of our associate pastors and told him, "Please sit down. I have news that you are not going to find pleasant." We had big chunks of the bell tower to fall onto the street.
Oh, my gosh.
And it is going to, we've investigated, it's going to be somewhat expensive. So what happened is they did the survey of the options and came up with the fact that eventually we had to spend $750,000 to which in flat money was the about the same amount it cost to build the building to begin with in 1925.
Wow.
Relatively speaking, of course, it was not that different, but it had to be redone, and we had big enclosures of the tower, and you could not enter on the front Fifth Street side, and so forth. One of the culprits had been the fact that there was a weather vane, and as it moved, it had worn a hole in the top of the
Oh, my gosh.
tower.
I don't think I've ever heard the culprit.
That was not the only one, but that certainly paid a lot of difference for the weakening of the tower. So it was replaced, and I'm told, and I think this is correct, that the new cross that was replaced, which did not move, was given by the Dr. Herring's children, who had been pastor here. He'd been pastor for 25 years.
And tell us the famous quote about the weather vane moving from a weather vane to a cross at the top of the steeple tower.
I'm not sure I remember.
I'm sorry, I don't remember who said it. It may have been David Hughes who said, we're not going to let the winds of cultural change around us direct us. We're going to let the cross be our guide.
That, but I do not remember the exact words.
Yeah.
That was a statement for the direction of the church.
Yeah, that's right.
I think.
That's right.
So that was a big issue.
Yeah.
And then later, under his leadership, we began in 2005 a Heritage and Hope campaign to redo some of the inside of the building, and it was to involve $300,000 to $400,000. And it was decided that the church would raise the money and not just spend it all on the building itself. And there was going to be a tenth of that amount, whatever that ended up being, that would go to missions. It was a little controversial at first, but it became very much accepted and probably contributed to making the campaign go further.
Mm-hmm.
The inside was redone and dedicated in February of 2007. What it involved is, as they removed the carpet, there was a meeting based on the one that they had when they chose the new direction of the church and chose Dr. Brown to be the pastor. They, who served 40 years, they had an all-night prayer meeting. Well, the church had a prayer meeting. I think it closed around midnight. But while the carpet was removed, people were invited to come and write on the original floor. And some even actually painted on the original floor. So that should be a lot of fun when somebody out there in the future removes the current carpet to see what is underneath the carpet.
Well, and a number of our current members were there that night,
right.
and they remember it very distinctly and remember the prayers that they wrote. I used that reference in a sermon at the 100th anniversary of the building, and I had probably a half a dozen people come and show me a picture on their phone of this is what I wrote on the floor, or this was the prayer I offered. So that was certainly a meaningful night in the church's life.
They did a lot of work in rearranging the pews.
Yes.
They were the original Huntley pews, of course, still. And they needed to widen the aisles for the fire department. They needed to remove the area of pews around the outside of the building, which had been made to fit the round building.
Right.
And so they had to remove those for purposes of the fire department. And to top it all off, the next year, the Pass family gave a new bell for the church. They had been to France and had observed bells that had unusually plain and wonderful sounds. So they had a bell cast in France and brought here. And it was put on display for a while, and then it was lifted up to the tower, and it now chimes the hours and so forth.
Wow. I think my favorite memory of the bell, having not been here when the bell was installed, came years later in 2020 on Good Friday of 2020, when sort of the world was closed down and we couldn't gather for Good Friday and Easter. Two of our members, Gary Knight and his young son at the time, Micah, went up in the bell, and our bell has an automatic kind of a controller on it, so it will automatically ring every hour on the hour. But the controller was broken; it wasn't working. And those early days of COVID, nobody was coming around to do servicing of a steeple tower bell. Anyway, Gary and Micah went up in the steeple tower and manually rang the bell at noon that day, and took a video of it and shared it. And it was just one of the most powerful images for our congregation during that time away from each other and in such a state of fear and disruption. And so I am grateful that steeple tower bell has provided comfort and hope for not just our congregation, but at least after that event in 2020, I heard from a number of people in the city that live downtown or work downtown and heard the bell and felt comforted by it. So I'm grateful for the Pass family for putting it there.
That's right. And I don't think there was a major change to the sanctuary after that. But we did something in 2008 that was quite unusual. The city was faced with a enlarging number of homeless people, and we had some places that Samaritan Inns and crisis control that had taken care of them. Then some of the downtown churches, including First Baptist, began to open the church for that purpose. We had problems to begin with in that the church did not fit the laws of the city, which had been determined by state laws. Our people could not go directly into the building or out of the building without using stairs or an elevator, which would not work if there were an emergency. We had improper lighting to fit the needs of the rules, and there was no sprinkler system, all of which was part of the law that governed what you could do with this kind of building. And so after a lot of work with the mayor and Kelly King, who was chairman of the deacons, Dr. Hughes, and a couple of more lay people, with the blessing of the mayor, went to Raleigh, talked to a committee, and we were able to get them to change the state law that would determine any cities or local jurisdictions that in situations like that, anywhere in the state of North Carolina could accommodate with special needs for people like that. And so I think that was an amazing example of where we changed laws to fit a more just legal system here in North Carolina.
That's right.
And it's now still on the books.
That's right.
This can be done.
And that was such a vital ministry for the church for a number of years of providing that overflow shelter, particularly in the winter. Yes. Tell us, Paul, as we kind of complete the arc of these years of the church's life, we have long practiced not just staying here on this block in this building with this group of people, but we have practiced going out in the community and taking the love we experience with God here and taking it out into the community. And just around that same time frame, that looked like buying a property across the street. So tell us that story.
The church had long needed more parking. And Dr. Hughes had thought that, had rumored that the Employment Security Commission building on 6th Street with an entrance across from our parking on Poplar would be perhaps for sale. The price they had wanted was beyond anything we could afford. But in later years, the owner of the property, seeing that the building was not being kept up well, he decided to sell it for $500 and something thousand, I think it was. And we decided in the meantime, with Dr. Hughes' encouragement, that the building would not be torn down in order to offer more parking, but the parking that was there would be used, and the building could be used as a ministry. And it was opened over a number of months later because of having to totally redo the building. And volunteers, as he had just announced his retirement and continued to work on redoing the building. It is now a
501c3.
Yes, it's a term that we do. And it's open now to how many different...
so it's called the Winston-Salem Center for Education and the Arts, and it houses 4 local nonprofits, all 4 of which have been there since the very beginning. So the Street School, which is a school for teenagers that need kind of a second chance at school, that was the first nonprofit that made a home at the John 3:16 building down here. Leadership Winston-Salem has its home there. Authoring Action, which is a nonprofit arts-based organization that works with middle schooler and high school students to use the written word, poetry, the spoken word as a meaningful source of energy and as a way to kind of cope with all that life brings us in those years. And Dress for Success. So those 4 nonprofits made their home there, and what I don't mean to take the lead here, but what I know of the space, part of the goal in forming that nonprofit was to create rent-free space for other nonprofits so that more of their dollars could be spent on the programs and the people that they serve. And so it has been a great point of pride for the church to invest in this space, to create the space. It's served by an independent board that has some members of our church, but by and large, the work of the Center for Education and the Arts is to create this rent-free space for the 4 nonprofits that are there. It's been a wonderful ministry, been a wonderful partnership of the church over the years, and just another way that we have understood the call to go beyond the boundaries of a space.
There are other areas we've done here in the city, and taken people to places beyond the country.
Yes.
Including the Dominican Republic. And so the church has been using a building that is now 100 years old to house our worship and a lot of other ministries. But we are trying to, as Pastor Emily will tell us later, restating our missions goals of this of the church itself beyond the church. And so we are now celebrating the use of the current building, but going far beyond that, which we'll hear about more.
That's right. So before I give them a preview of what to expect in our next and final episode of this series, is there anything else you want to share with us about how the church has, over its long history, been a people with a place?
Well, it's gone through a number of iterations, but it has never been what you might call a traditional Baptist church. And it's no longer associated with its original group of Southern Baptist and State Baptist conventions. We're CBF. We have tried to see that the church go beyond itself. We've had excellent music programs throughout the whole time, and just this past Sunday we participated again in the Messiah, which we had done for about 90 years, and always within the church. So there's been services in that regard, and we've had pastors who've led us in various and sundry ways, but the building has been well kept, except during times when there was a downturn in economy and other things, and it is still now probably in as good a shape as it's ever been since it was built in the 20s, and we can celebrate that, especially now that we're also celebrating Christmas.
There you go.
Advent, and then Christmas.
Yes.
One thing I didn't mention that I think is quite unique is when they were redoing the building in 2007, we needed to redo, and you may be able to see it behind us, the area in the baptistry. It was a fine art that was virtually lost after the building was built. And in 2007, we were able to, through the contractor, to find a Russian to come and redo that part of the building.
Wow.
So that is very unique. And I came into the sanctuary one day, and at the pew over near the organ, there was a man lying there dressed very much as I had pictures of Cossacks in the flared pants and top boots and long hair.
Right.
He had been found to be one of the few people left in the world
who
had the art of redoing that.
Oh, my goodness.
So we have a very unusual, blessed piece of work in the back of our
That's very
baptistry,
cool.
and we will be able to
Yes,
cherish that.
that's
Because
right.
there may not be anybody else around if it ever needs to be replenished.
That's right.
But
That's right.
the building is quite unique. It was built in the 20s at a time when it was visited by any number of people as an outstanding structure, and is still considered to be in that way.
Yes. Paul, you have given us such a gift in these 7 episodes of telling the story of our congregation and how it has lived together in these 3 different church houses, and what how the space has shaped our ministry, our vision, our mission. You are such a fine historian in general, but particularly of our beloved community. And so I'm very grateful. Thank you so much for joining me for these conversations and for sharing your wisdom with us. We're really grateful.
Thank you.
So friends, this is the last episode that Paul and I will share, but if you will tune in for one final episode in this 8 episode arc, I will be by myself next time telling the story of our buildings over the past 10 years. I was called to the church in 2015, and unlike my predecessor, Dr. Hughes, who got a call and was told, you better sit down about a steeple tower that was breaking off in pieces. I was told, we're doing some work in assessing our facilities, and you're going to need to do something about the building when you arrive. That set off quite a multi-year story that I could not have imagined, that frankly our congregation could not have imagined, that I would love to tell you about next week to kind of complete that last 10 years of what our church life has been in this space. And tell you kind of where we're headed. What is the next 100 years? What hope do we carry forward with us as we celebrate this anniversary and look to our hopeful future ahead? So join us for the final episode where you'll hear about these last 10 years. But Paul, once again, thank you so much for your time and energy and history and knowledge and wisdom and love of God in this church. We are all so grateful.
Thank you for making this possible, and certainly the last 10 years have been a real outstanding move in the direction of the building as well as the church's mission.
Thank you. Thank you. And friends, thank you for tuning in. Blessings to you. We will see you next time. Bye-bye.